Morning and welcome everyone to Opening Doors Fairfield County Legislative Roundtable Discussion. My name is Cheryl Bell. I'm the Department Head of Housing for Recovery Network of Programs located in Bridgeport, and I am also the co-chair of ODFC, along with my colleague who couldn't be with us today, Raphael Pagan, Executive Director of Pacific House in Stanford. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping items. First and foremost, if you're not on mute, please mute your devices. Please mute your devices. I promise you that there will be time during our breakout discussions to ask questions and have lots of discussion. We are so delighted to have so many attendees this morning, and we are especially honored to have our legislature delegation, many of them joining us today. We just ask that each legislature that is represented, elected official that's here today, please type your name and the area, city, town that you represent. We just want everyone that's on the Zoom to know that you're here. I just want to take a moment to talk to you about ODFC. So someone might be asking, who is ODFC? Well, I'm so glad that you asked. So I'm just going to give you a brief description of ODFC, Opening Doors Fairfield County. Opening Doors Fairfield County is a regional movement of over 150 stakeholders working to end homelessness in and throughout Fairfield communities. ODFC subregions include Greater Bridgeport, Greater Norwalk, Stanford, Greenwich, and Danbury. Homeless service providers and community leaders work collectively to pool resources, align practices, creating a system that tackles issues county-wide. Using a collective impact approach, ODFC coordinates the strategies of prevention, diversion, housing, employment, advocacy, and services to ensure that episodes of homelessness are rare, brief, non-reoccurring, and that all citizens within the region have access to safe, affordable housing. So in a brief summary, that's who we are. And again, welcome. And now I'm going to turn it over to our ODFC Advocacy Task Force co-chairs, Helen McAlinden, and she's the president and CEO of Homes with Hope, and Denise Williams, CEO of Inspirica. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today to learn more about the importance of housing the homeless in Fairfield County. I am Denise Williams, CEO of Inspirica in Stanford. For today's event, I wear the hat as co-chair of the Opening Doors of Fairfield County's Advocacy Task Force. Joining me today is my dear friend and co-chair, Helen McAlinden, President and CEO of Homes with Hope, who will share the agenda for this morning. The focus of the Advocacy Task Force of Opening Doors of Fairfield County is to advocate for system change, increase funding, and favorable legislative policies in 3 areas: the homeless system, eviction moratorium, and deeply affordable housing. We ensure our members' voices are heard as part of a collective impact agenda. We are proud to partner and collaborate with key organizations such as the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness, the Partnership for Strong Communities, the Fairfield County Center for Housing Opportunity, and the Alliance for Non-for-Profits. Today is the first of many discussions we will be hosting in 2022 to bring to the forefront the relevant issues, policy recommendations, and/or achievements that strengthens our impact and outcomes in serving the homeless, as well as supporting families and individuals facing housing insecurities. Before I turn the Zoom mic over to Helen, I would like to thank all the members of this task force, communications team, and all our speakers today. Helen?
Thank you, my dear friend and partner, Denise. Again, welcome everyone. We have an exciting program planned today. Thank you, Cheryl, for your opening remarks. Today, you will hear from several partners as we collectively advocate for legislation that will increase funding for the frontline workers, support the coordinated access system, and help prevent homelessness, and increase funding for affordable housing units to house our homeless and employees. Our speakers for the main session are David Rich, President and CEO of the Housing Collective, Evonne Klein, CEO of the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness, Danielle Hubley, Policy Analyst for the Partnership for Strong Communities, and Christie Stewart, Director of Fairfield County Centre for Housing Opportunities. These illustrious speakers will cover topics ranging from state of homelessness in Connecticut, our challenges, successes, legislative priorities, data on affordable housing shortages in Fairfield County, and a call to action. After our main session, we will break for 4 discussion groups, and you have chosen them at registration. For those who have not registered, no worries. You can put in the chat your preference, and the preferences are Bridgeport, Danbury, Stanford, or Norwalk. After the breakout sessions, we will bring everybody back into the main session for a wrap up and share next steps. It's now my honor to introduce you to Antoine Riggs. Antoine was the 2021 Carl Walter Housing Tenant Award recipient. This award is given to a housing tenant that has a commitment and is an advocate for permanent housing solutions, exhibits leadership skills, and works to make their community a better place. And Antoine is all that. He is here as a person with lived homeless experience. Today, as a caseworker and colleague in the field where he once was a client, who better to represent and advocate for what the system needs most? Without further ado, I welcome Antoine Riggs.
Hello, I'm Antoine. I'm a father, shift assistant at Homes with Hope, and a voter. I had hard times what led me to end up homeless at the end of 2018. At the beginning of 2019, directly from a homeless shelter, I moved to Portland, Oregon to live with my family member. I could not afford any apartment to remain in Connecticut, so I was depressed because I was away from my children. Once again, I ended up back in Connecticut where my kids live, homeless once more. I called 211 and ended up back at Homes with Hope homeless shelter. The case managers helped me to get housed with rental assistance and reunified with my children. During this time, I stayed connected with Gillespie Center and the staff who were my support system. When the pandemic had happened, I was offered a job at Gillespie Center, where once more I lived. Today, I work there Monday through Friday, and I love it. I come to work every day. I enjoy talking to the homeless. And my story, I give them my story and have hope they will be housed one day just like me. The job is great, but even with a job, I can't afford rent in Connecticut without some rental assistance. I pay child support, and I'm about to get custody of my children who live with my mother in an overcrowded situation. I want my children to go to school and go to college so they never end up homeless like me. I'm so excited to be working on getting all our stuff together and under the same roof to work our positive plan and future. Please support the request today to increase wages for the front lab staff and support rental assistance to support people like me to continue to live and work in Connecticut. Thank you very much for my story.
Thank you, Antoine, for your heartfelt and inspiring words, and a special thanks to Denise and Helen and Lindsay for just the countless hours and days and weeks you put into organizing this virtual session. We, as a homeless system, have much to be proud of over the last decade, with some remarkable successes. The first that we had, and not just here, but throughout the state, was ending veteran homelessness as we know it. Six years ago, and that doesn't mean veterans don't continue to become homeless, but we have the resources, we have the and the system in place to quickly find them and housing, and which we've shown here in Fairfield County and throughout the state over the last 6 years. Secondly, on the cusp of ending chronic homelessness and being the first multi-city homeless region in the country to do so, and well on the path of ending family and youth homelessness in the next couple of years. And as you've heard from Cheryl and Denise and Helen, we do this because of really the remarkable resilience and collaboration that we have created through the Opening Doors of Fairfield County network and partnerships over the last decade, which is an extraordinary partnership of over 200 agencies and housing authorities, police departments, service agencies, faith-based youth, you name it, and growing by the year. But we and I think most importantly, at least where I sit here, is how we've kept our most vulnerable neighbors and citizens safe during this pandemic, with no homeless that we know of having died in our region from COVID over the last 2 years, while we've continued to safely provide them with emergency shelter, hotel stays, and then permanent housing. But we do face strong headwinds. The system, frankly, is fraying. After 2 years with COVID, we have exhausted frontline staff who are being asked to do way too much for way too long, and finding it very hard to hire new staff within our system, largely because they are underpaid and haven't seen pay raises or pay increases or increased state assistance for over a decade. Importantly, federal COVID resources expire this September, so we're going to be losing those critical resources. On top of that, having the end of the eviction moratorium, and at the moment running out of the Unite CT funds. So the prediction is there's going to be a surge in homelessness in 2022. And I think the most important obstacle or critical obstacle we face is the lack of affordable housing. And I don't mean just a little affordable housing. There is no affordable housing left. There are no vacancies left in Fairfield County for those of moderate or limited means. This is something that will be talked about later today, but it needs to be solved. It has to be a long-term solution, but we're not going to truly end homelessness unless we can combat and figure out how to create more affordable housing throughout the region. I'm going to be just a little bit, I think, controversial here, and stating that I think our biggest problem right now is one of perception. Yes, we have made great strides, but this is largely through the collaboration of all of us with the federal government, not the state government. And there's a real disconnect here from the governor's office and others saying that they provided substantial resources to the homeless in Connecticut. That's simply not true. There have been no additional service resources from appropriations in the last 7 years. And at this time, we desperately need the state as a supportive partner in this triad with us and the federal government if we are truly going to continue to keep our most vulnerable citizens safe. So I just ask you, it's a plea, when the governor's office and others say that they're taking care of the homeless, please query them and ask to see the line item that actually goes to the homeless service and see if that has increased in the last 6 or 7 years. So what we really need, and you'll hear more of this, is really three things that we're looking for. One is additional frontline staffing services and resources for our frontline staff, which I said is fraying. Two is continued support for the coordinated access network, which is our system of working together and collaborating as one. And lastly is housing resources. I know this is a long-term investment, but we need your support in this like we've never needed it before. And lastly, like to just spend a minute talking about what has been a remarkable success, but where we really desperately need your help going forward. When COVID hit, all the shelters in Danbury closed within 10 days, and there was, and that included the city shelter. We came together as one system very quickly. Came in and supported the homeless in Danbury, and in weeks we're able to get them into the Super 8 hotel there, and work with the city of Danbury to house the homeless there, and then got FEMA money to keep them there for the last 19 months. That shelter is due to close in 2 weeks, which means there will be no shelter in Danbury. We need your support. We need you to lean into this. We need your creativity to see how in partnership we can figure out how we can continue to have emergency sheltering operations in the greater Danbury and Danbury area. This is critical for all of us, and we know for you too. And it's so important that we can keep every vulnerable citizen and neighbor in the northwest corner of Fairfield County safe and housed. Thank you very much. And turning it over to Evonne.
Good morning, everyone. Great to see you here and be with you on this beautiful sunny and snow-covered day. I'm Evonne Klein, the CEO of the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness. Again, thank you all for joining us. We're fortunate in Connecticut to have developed one of the strongest and successful homeless response systems in the nation. And with your help today, we have the ability to strengthen that system. There are approximately 2,600 individuals who are homeless in Connecticut on any given night. Approximately 250 are families with children in shelter, and approximately 430 are unsheltered individuals, meaning they are living in spaces not meant for human habitation. What our numbers and our system tell us is that in Connecticut, we can end homelessness if we work together to make ending homelessness a top priority. Homelessness is costly not only to our cities, towns, and state, but mostly to the individuals and families who are experiencing the trauma of living without a home. Providing a family of 4 with a housing voucher will cost the state approximately $35,000 a year. That same family remaining homeless will cost the state approximately $100,000 a year as they cycle in and out of expensive public systems, not to mention the developmental issues children may experience. We've heard a lot about mental health this year, and as you consider your mental health legislation this session, also consider the connection, how not having a home can contribute to a decline in mental health. As you know, the pandemic highlighted the role played in protecting public health by our frontline workers who staff our shelters, as they kept and continue to keep individuals and communities safe. Shortly, you will hear about our legislative priorities. I urge you to support these priorities so that here in Connecticut, we can proudly say everyone has a place to call home. Thank you again. Danielle?
Thank you, Evonne. Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Danielle Hubley. I'm with the Partnership for Strong Communities, and I help to more specifically support the statewide Reaching Home campaign, which, as David Rich mentioned, ODFC operates in the same model, but we operate at the statewide level through collective impact. So part of that includes creating a consensus legislative agenda. This is a really critical tool in our efforts to make homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring, or you might hear it in other terms, one time. This common agenda was developed by priorities created through our 5 working groups of the Reaching Home campaign, coordinated by an overarching coordinating committee. And it targets the policy changes and funding needs that are most critical, strategic, and feasible given the session we're heading into. And we use this, as you'll hear more today, to engage all of our elected officials and representatives. So on this year's agenda, our overarching premise is that we know homelessness is solvable. Connecticut can make homelessness a rare, brief, and one-time experience by investing in what works. You heard it multiple times, and you will continue to hear it not only in Fairfield County, but across the state. We need housing, supportive services, and to support the people and infrastructure who help uplift those who are in a crisis situation or who may be experiencing vulnerabilities. So really our overarching agenda is prioritized into 3 buckets: funding the state's homeless response system, expanding housing resources, and investing in supportive services for the state's most vulnerable. So as you heard David mention earlier, one of our big priorities is investing in funding the front lines. This significant gap remains among homeless and housing service organizations. We can address this funding gap. We're seeking to support the Connecticut Community Nonprofit Alliance's long-term plan to restore at least $461 million to community nonprofits, which would include the housing and homeless service organizations. But beyond that, we're also seeking an additional $13.34 million for fiscal year 23. And this would help to provide homeless and housing service organizations funding for adequate wages, benefits, and professional development for frontline staff, increasing rent and utility costs, and better access to technology. And that would, ideally, we have that broken out across the Department of Housing and the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services line items based on calculated need that we can provide more information for offline or via email. But I will save today's time for folks to have this conversation with you all. As was also shared earlier, investing in Connecticut's coordinated access networks, or the CANs, as you might be familiar with them. Our goal is to provide an additional $2.3 million in Department of Housing and Homelessness service line item to provide critical staff infrastructure support to the CANs and 211. And we know that the CANs provide streamlined access to homeless service systems at the regional level, and 211 serves as the statewide single point of entry to the CANs. That system is what has allowed us to see successes, and it is something we want to make sure we have annually supported moving forward. We're also hoping to see increases in rental assistance in efforts to expand housing resources. This would increase the Department of Housing's Housing and Homeless Services line by at least $20 million in fiscal year 23, with the goal of expanding the rental assistance program with $2 million to provide rental assistance to 200 scattered site supportive housing units for highly vulnerable individuals and families. We're also hoping to invest in supportive services, as I mentioned earlier. This includes increasing investments in targeted services through the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. We're looking for a $2.25 million increase in fiscal year 23 to expand supportive services to 300 scattered site and development units for highly vulnerable individuals and families facing persistent obstacles to maintaining their housing stability. And last, in efforts to invest in supportive services, we're looking to create an eviction prevention partnership. This would provide an additional $2.5 million in funding to establish and implement a proven eviction prevention model, leveraging the right to counsel legal services and coupling them with high quality social work to address vulnerable renters' needs holistically through the Department of Housing. And lastly, we're looking to preserve items that we had seen in the past. I won't get into those because funding for, we are just looking to maintain those investments. We know how critical that funding can be for us. And lastly, I won't dive into it. There's more conversation on the affordable housing side through our secondary campaign, which is Home Connecticut. Some of you may be familiar. They have an additional agenda, but they are mirroring the Reaching Home campaign's ask around RAP and preservation of bonding funds. So I will stop there and pass it off to the next speaker. But before I do, I will drop in the chat for you all, because I know I just went through a lot of information very quickly, More details can be found on our website. And the link that I just shared will link you to both agendas for our legislative priorities. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and I'm happy to be here for the rest of today's conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Danielle. My name is Christie Stewart. I'm the director of Fairfield County Center for Housing Opportunity. We work hand in hand with ODFC and look at the region's shortage of affordable housing, which really underlies our inability to house thousands of people. So I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview on data so that you have a sense of the scale of what we're facing in Fairfield County. So currently, there are 24,970 units that we don't have. So 24,000, almost 25,000 households like Antoine's that literally cannot find a place to live in Fairfield County that they can afford. That is a unit gap that we have to fill. And to give you a sense of the mountain that presents in front of us, since 2010 in Fairfield County, we've only permitted 6,227 total multifamily units. So not that all of those were affordable, that's the total. So I share that with you to give you a sense of the urgency about the scale of this issue. We have this massive shortage. It is completely in the 0 to 30% area median income bracket, which in Fairfield County still includes folks like Antoine who get up and go to work every day just like us. But there are no units for them. And so the center focuses on data. We urge you to use as much data as possible as you consider the options before you in front of the legislature this year. This is a particularly crucial issue in Fairfield County, and not one that our 23 municipalities are going to be able to solve individually. It's going to take a regional set of solutions, and there isn't a silver bullet. And so I also urge you to consider, this is not an either or situation. We need every tool in the toolbox, and we need your support for those because we're running out of time to fix this. And I know this session, you will hear a lot about fair share, equitable transit-oriented development, and accessory dwelling unit. From a production and preservation standpoint for housing affordability, all three of those are going to be critical if we are going to close the 25,000 unit gap that we have in our region. So reach out if there's any data that you need. We've spent the last 3 years compiling everything you can imagine in terms of data around housing affordability in the region, and encourage you to use us and ODFC as a resource. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you everyone for attending. This was awesome, and it is just the beginning of the work ahead. We thank you all for your attendance. We thank you for your support. And, you know, once again, I just want to kind of reiterate really briefly some of the things that were mentioned today, and that's really supporting our frontline staff, expanding affordable housing, and strengthening our cans so that we could continue to do this great work. Although we are a high performing system, okay, and one of the best in the country, you know, there's still so much more that we can accomplish together. So this is like I said, the beginning of our discussions. I know that we didn't have a whole lot of time in our sessions, but there's going to be, I know already that there's going to be continued discussions within our sub-regions, with our legislatures and our community leaders. You know, we just really, really thank you so that we could continue to do this meaningful work. And to all of our legislatures and our elected officials, we thank you again for being here today and also for supporting our priorities. Okay, please feel free to reach out to the service providers in your community to continue the discussions. And we know that we'll see you soon. We'll see you soon. So thank you all. Thank you one and all. And enjoy the rest of your day and week. Thank you.